Okay, I know you guys are jonesing for Ford content, so I got some good news for you. Right now, I don't have a reliable truck to take us anywhere. It looks like the border, I'm guessing, I'm gonna call it, you're gonna open around June, July, and it's still winter. You might hear a lawnmower in the background, but that's my neighbor. He's going senile and he uses it to blow the snow off his driveway. So we're still got a little bit of time, but I don't have a truck. So I gotta bypass the C10 and get the F350 going because otherwise we're not gonna go anywhere this year. Or maybe I'll get the Silverado going. Twin turbo compound P pump 24 valve or Caterpillar F350. Let's get on the Caterpillar, here we go. Scott's done all the machining on the head, and yeah, on top of that, we got new injectors, new Huey pump, and new turbo. This will do more than we ever need it to do. Okay, so this is all stuff that we don't need. Don't harp on me for pulling apart an old Ford. It is a great engine. It's just not gonna make me happy, not near as much as a Caterpillar. Okay, so today's video is gonna be really easy. We're just gonna wire the engine. We just have to take this red wire, give it power, and this black wire, there's a black wire, we give that ground, turn the key and fire up. Super easy. Some of these are still labeled. Red, pending, Freightliner. Ooh, I'm in trouble. Let's get into it. Okay, looks very daunting, but it really isn't. There's a wiring harness for the Caterpillar engine itself that plugs into the engine computer, which is on the side of the Cat. And then there is a plug that goes to the cab of the whatever. This was a school bus, so I took the entire wiring harness from the school bus. So all the turn signals, everything is on this, and we don't need that. I do need the TCU, transmission controller, and that will be wired in nicely. It's got its own diagnostic plug. We're gonna keep all that. And that's the nice thing about keeping the original setup that we had. This is the engine and the transmission out of the bus with some of the parts from the Kodiak on there, but that's besides the point. Let's not worry about that. First things that we need to do, finish buttoning up everything on the engine itself so that mechanically everything is tight and is not going to leak. Things like the block heater is on order. There was studs on the bus that went, or sleeves that went between the exhaust manifold and here, which is why they weren't tight. By getting off the phone with Cat, they said that this serial number did not have the sleeves on it, so the threads are exposed. So we can bolt the manifold tight, which means that we can put the turbo tight, which means that we can tighten the drain, or the feed and the drain on our new turbo. The fan belt assembly, everything is good to go. And now we've got our radiator from Flex-A-Lite. So this one is actually off of a 6.0 Powerstroke. What that allowed us to do is measure our frame rails on the truck, and this one fit nicely in between, and is nice and tall. Basically is a perfect fit for this engine. Now, this will hang out down low a little bit because it's a lot taller than the original radiator. We didn't go with a 7.3 because they didn't have intercoolers, I don't believe. And this one will have an intercooler off of a 6.0 as well. We went with one from Summit that doesn't have the plastic tanks on it, and this nice one from Flex-A-Lite also does not have the plastic tanks on it that the Powerstrokes do. The top neck is a little bit smaller than the top one, but the bottom is the same size. So I can get a radiator hose that just goes from here to here, and we should be good there. And what we might do, because this is aluminum, is get vents too. We'll weld a nice elbow on it, point it in the right direction, and then not touch. We won't weld baseball bats to this radiator. Comes with electric cooling fans, which allows us to put it a lot closer, and you know I'm touching. But that's because I didn't weld my things far enough on my little stand here. A couple other things, our manifold. I need to drill and tap the sensors for the air intake, and we've got lines on order for our air compressor, which is the cooling lines, which we plumbed in to the other side. We did run the oil feed line nice and neat to oil the compressor, and then my hydro boost pump that will run the hydro boost. So we're going to start with the wiring harness, this one, making sure that all these plugs go somewhere. That goes into the computer here, and then this harness will go to the dash. But let's tighten up all the loose ends first. Once that's all bolted up, we will get into the wiring. Here we go. Also, why you send your engine off to the machine shop, because Scott actually decks the exhaust manifold so that they're nice and clean. Just a little bit of paint that's on there, but beautiful. All right, let's take a razor to that, take the paint off. Okay, everything bolted down, 35 foot-pounds to that. I'm gonna pre-lube the turbo, which is super critical, because we will be cranking it for a while we fill up that giant filter for the Huey before it'll start. I'll spin that around, and then we've got everything bolted down below, new O-rings in the feed, should be good to go. And that's it, get into the wiring. Okay, so this is all stuff that we don't need. Every green wire was lights for all the different flashers and stuff inside that was involved with the bus. Don't need that. This is everything to do with brakes, because it has an odd little parking brake. We've got a daytime running light module and a bunch of wires that we don't need. So basically, it's very straightforward, where all the green ones were for the lights, so we can cut all of those. All the pink ones go to the fuse panel, and they're either key power or battery. It's that simple. So basically what we're left with is 3 sections. This is coming from the engine on a plug that will connect to what's on the engine, and that is all of my gauges and my cruise control, my throttle pedal, and my key switch to turn everything on. The other one is mostly transmission, all the key power and battery power I need for the transmission. And then the other harness is what's on the engine and the transmission itself. Just lay it right back out again. We got one valve body at the back for the transmission. We've got our speed sensors, and then the plug at the back of the ECU And that ends up nice and neat right here. This is the transmission TCU, which will go inside. And that seems pretty complicated. You don't have to do any of that. You can get your pinout on the ECU. If you Google Cat 3126 ECU pinout, you can figure out which wires to connect to your throttle, to your cruise control, which ones are battery and which ones are ignition. And you can simplify that a lot. But the issue that you'll run into is getting your gauges to work. Now I opted to not go that route and leave a bunch of the factory wiring because I want the plugs in the firewall, and we've also met Classic Instruments. Super cool company who basically build really unique gauges, and talking to them, they're able to take our old gauge cluster out of the bus, figure out which wires go where, take the plug from the back, put it into the F150 and put their own gauges in there to run everything looking stock. So it will still look like an F150, but we can add whatever we want, including boost and EGTs. So once we're done with this, we're gonna send that off to them, and hopefully that works out. All right, so along with our Flex-A-Lite radiator, which is fantastic because it doesn't have any of those stupid plastic tanks, and their fins are actually corrugated to allow the air to go through, and all their tubes are channeled so that you get much better heat dissipation. We also got an upgraded intercooler. This one's from Summit as well. This should be a perfect fit, other than it's the wrong color. Let's see if it works. Oh, sweet. That left side, my left, closest to you, will squeeze nicely between the alternator and the AC compressor. And this one on the right could be a little bit lower, or higher, sorry, but a little bend on there and we got it. Actually, we can probably weld an elbow on that to go up a hair on like a 45, and that'll be a perfect fit, straight down and over. Man, that's awesome. There we go. Okay, so the intercooler is just kind of hanging on there with some cheap, quick brackets to make it work. And of course, I drilled the hole in the wrong spot. I think we're gonna tear into the truck. It's not on the road anyway. I really wanted to fire it on this stand, but the way everything is, it's a big giant engine with a lot of expensive parts on it. I don't want to risk anything happening firing it up, but I want to hear it run. So it's only logical. Now we pull the truck apart. We've got most of our major pieces. We're gonna pull the cab and the box off of the F350, make some proper mounts. We can figure out all our measurements and that what we need now. And then we don't have to put the cab on and off a bunch of times. So let's get into it. All right, there she is in hibernation. Let's see, it's on fire. I forget, I don't know if there's a battery in it or not. There is. I hear the fuel pump. Fuel tank still leaks. Oh, look at that. Oil. I will not miss that 460 noise at all. You know that there's a lot of stuff happening in the way of a lot of fuel being used, but nothing really going on. Oh, I know you guys are excited about this, and so am I. And it'll be the last time it looks like that for a little bit. Okay, so the tailgate's decent enough. I could use a little touch-up paint. I don't think we're gonna get too carried away with the paint, but this is kind of embarrassing. This was all brittle. I closed the tailgate one time and this whole Ford thing fell off. So OBS Solutions, I think, makes a new tin plate for this without the indent in here. And then I think we're gonna get Caterpillar CNC'd out, and so that sticks out kind of the way that the Platinum looks on the back. I think that's a nice touch. The battery from New York, that was still no good. My original, this is the only piece I have left from my 1987 S10. This has been, it still has some dog food in it maybe. This has served 3 great dogs, 1 bad one. I gotta keep that. I also have this box. I actually forgot what's in this box. Water, that's not good. That's not good at all. I thought that was waterproof. Anyway, I just need 2 sensors. This one was out of the water. Okay, nice. That one's okay. Not doing anything with that later, or the rest of this was trash anyway. Cummins? Sure. But as for the box itself, we're basically just gonna pull this off, empty out the back, and pull it off, put it on a trailer and leave it outside. So I can't stress this enough, guys, that if you are doing a project to this scale where you are taking something older and doing all the work to do a conversion in it, make sure you start with a clean body. Look at this, almost 30-year-old truck, and I could spin the nuts on and off by hand. I made the mistake with the Tahoe. I did all the work to put the 4BT in it, only to have the body rot away where it wasn't safe. It is 100% worth it to drive down to Arizona, the desert, Texas, Florida, Montana, somewhere where they don't use salt, and enjoy the road trip home. Happy to say that we did buy the Bronco. It is in Oregon, 84, looks to be pretty clean, bought it sight unseen. So once the border opens up, we'll head down there and drive that home. Look at that. only Jose's mud. The California mud there. So we'll wash that off. We'll paint the whole bottom of this. In earlier videos, we did say that we were gonna put bed liner on the bottom, and we've had a lot of comments saying that it holds moisture, so we will not be doing that. We'll just be using the good paint and then under oiling it. Here we go. Okay, the reason why I put the cat on the stand and got as far as I could as is because the truck just takes up way too much space. C10 is in the house garage. Now we can roll things back and forth. We're gonna make a stand for the cab, and then we can work on the interior in that area, and then quickly just roll it outside, push it back in and out with the tractor as need be. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is California Spec 460, meaning that it's got extra emission stuff on it to keep the California cancer down. When we dynoed it, we got 209 horsepower to the rear tires, getting 9 miles to the gallon. There's nothing wrong with this engine other than it's just not efficient enough for the amount of power and torque that you're getting. So this one is going to somebody that is going to swap it into an old muscle car, I think, whether it's going to Mustang or something, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with this, but it's not good for what we needed to do. So don't harp on me for pulling apart an old Ford. It is a great engine. You're pulling the emission stuff off, different camshaft. It'll make somebody very happy. It's just not gonna make me happy, not near as much as a Caterpillar. So here we go. Pretty straightforward on how to pull the cab, drain your fluids, leave your rad and everything with your front assembly. 2 bolts down right into the channel on either side. Disconnect your steering inside the cab, slide the bar forward. Anything that's on your fenders and your wheel well, pull that off, obviously, drain your AC and remove it from your condenser and then from your compressor. The one line, or just the lines that are going over top of the firewall there. Wiring harness is plugged here, but I could not get that plug off and I shattered it in a bunch of places. Wiring harness that goes to the tail lights down below there, and one plug on the firewall that ends up with it. Everything else is just gonna get lifted off with the cab. You got a ground strap into the front corner there, and then to your fender here, and then your starter wires go to the solenoid right here. Inside the cab is kind of a pain for the cab mounts there, because you have to go, the bolts end up straight through, not like the GMs where they thread into something. So you kind of need you need long arms to reach inside the cabin underneath if you're doing it by yourself. So I think we can roll the thing outside a little bit, because my hoist doesn't actually line up with the cab very nice, and then lift the cab off. Here we go.
There's that ground strap I was missing. There's the other one. I knew there was one.
Oh, that's nice. It's so nice. Alright, so I got really excited there for a little bit because this catalytic is bigger than my leg. And I thought we could sell that to finance most of the build, but she's a little bit hollow. See that? Yeah, she would have put out a good solid 198 horsepower on the dyno, but because of that hollow tube, she put out a decent, respectable 209. Anyway, that's it for me for today. She's up in the air, and that's good. I have nowhere to put this cab, so I'm gonna roll this thing outside in the morning. It's still really cold out right now. I think the sun's supposed to shine tomorrow. We'll lift this 460 out. I think it's sold, potentially. If not, you should buy it, because you can save an old 460, because you can put it in your dream project car. Your dream is just different than my dream, and that's okay. But I'm gonna run to Princess Auto tomorrow in the morning, grab some casters, build a little frame so I can roll this cab around, and then we'll strip the rest of this frame. I'm going to mock everything up, put everything in place, and then we'll pull it back out and we'll paint the frame. So I don't think we need to sandblast it. That's not rust. That's just, that still has the original paint on it. Anyway, light went out. That's time for me to go to bed. Here we go. Okay, so I got the scales underneath the tires here, and it's not great. Without the cab on there and the box, the front tank is empty, the back tank is full. We're coming in at 4,000 pounds, so just that frame and that 460 weighs more than the Audi. Now we're gonna take that 460 out and put that monster in there, but the issue is that our scales are good for 1,700 pounds each, so that only gives me 500 pounds per front tire. Are we gonna add 1,000 pounds? Oh, maybe not. We'll see. Anyway, now we can pull the 460 out, and then we'll compare that to what it's like with the cat in it. I won't do it with the cab and the box on it, because I think that's too much for our scales. We're good for 7,000 pounds. So here we go. It's actually a really good fit, other than my pressure fitting for the fuel return on the back here. I looked at Drew Man's driveway. He brought his truck over, and there was lots of room there on his truck, but he also did a 2 or 3 inch body lift. I kind of want to keep it stock because I really like the stance the way it is. I debated on telling Scott to drill this passageway straight up and down from here and make the fitting come out the back here, and I didn't. Now this fitting is here, and I could have had it up here. That's a good inch, and I might need that. But we can just kind of tappy right there, but I'll take it out for now and drop it down the rest of the way and then see where it sits. Okay, so the cab is leaning back just a hair. So if it's sitting level, then we gain a little bit of room at the back there with the transmission, but everything can still go about 2 inches if I get rid of those side pieces. I've got just enough room to put my radiator in the cradle right where it is, and then put my intercooler, my power steering cooler, my transmission cooler, and my AC condenser up. It'll basically be touching these fins right here, and the latch will probably be in between the radiator and the intercooler, or I might drop the intercooler down a hair, but that should fit. We gotta drop that cradle way down, and other than that, it'd be nice to get it just a little bit higher at the back, but this angle is actually pretty good. My U-joint phase pretty good there, but it'll likely be a 2-piece drive shaft, so that's not a huge issue. And everything else, I got a pile of room. So left the compressor on, hopefully to have onboard air, because when Drew had it, his steering shaft missed it. So the steering box will be kind of right here. And I think it does miss it really nicely there. AC, all of that will probably come out because that's all vacuum controlled, and we'll probably try and use one from the F150 or the F450 in the driveway. Then we got another 2002 coming too yet. Other than that, mounts to the side. I have to turn the oil pan around, and that's about it. So now that I know roughly where it is, I can take some measurements, put them on the tape box, and then we will sit the engine in the frame. And basically my starting point is my radiator support right here. That's where the top of the frame is right now. I need to have clearance for the front axle to move up and down, and because this is 2 cylinders longer, it sits a little farther ahead. So the steering might be an issue because my steering is right there. So that is probably gonna be the biggest issue. But for the rest, not so bad. I like it. All right, I think I can find some casters. Which ones? Got air, plastic, rubber, small, big. Might as well grab the cylinder for the C10 at the same time. It's this girl here, I think. That's a 2-hander. All right, gotta kind of leave this brace in place because that's where the shock towers kind of get their strength from to keep from wiggling around. And the drag links for the front suspension is attached to it too. So we gotta kind of leave that alone. We can knock these braces off, or just the mounts for the engine. And if we turn the oil pan around, then I think we have just enough height. If we go off of the rad mounts there and it comes out, then we're about 9 inches. I need about 9.5. That's pretty close. So I think what we're gonna do is just spray this thing down with some degreaser, let it sit outside in the sun for a little bit, clean it off a little bit while I move the engine and make a stand for the cab so we can roll that ahead. Then we'll pick up the engine and flip over the oil pan and then drop it in place and see where we sit. Steering's an issue. And it's not quite centered either. It's off center so that it lines up with the diff, which is off just a little bit, and that's fine. We got more room for steering and the AC or the air compressor there. But yeah, here we go. All right, that undoubtedly was one of the most satisfying pressure washes ever. Even the duck enjoyed it. Just because it's so clean, you don't have to sandblast anything. We just pop a little bit of paint on that. But just to have it in such good shape is so nice underneath all that mud. So we'll drop the fuel tanks. I just wanted to have a little bit of warm sun yet to dry this off before I put it back in the shop. But we'll drop the tanks. We got a new front tank that's already a diesel, only because this one's leaking and they're cheap enough. And then the rear tank, we're just gonna put a little 12-volt pump in there. We hold a button, it'll just pump the rear tank into the front tank because the FASS isn't gonna like the selector valve is gonna destroy that. So come on, duck, what are you doing? Eating my boots? You gonna tie my shoelaces? Are you pulling my shoelace? Funny guy.
Hey, camera shy? You camera shy? Still worn out for your rest? What's going on? Where are you going? Where are you going? Public property, I can videotape you if I want.